Hey guys, it's Chelsea from The Financial Diet. Drum roll, please. It is our first, yes, first live workshop of 2023, and the first and possibly only live digital workshop we'll be doing this year with investing expert Amanda Holden, and it's happening on June 13th. Join Amanda for Investing in 2023, a brand new one-night-only workshop to help you navigate the chaos that is wealth building in 2023. She'll break down everything you need to understand about investing at any income level. Amanda has taught over 10,000 members of the TFD community how to invest. There is no finance teacher more qualified or more entertaining than Amanda. For anyone who has been wanting to learn how to invest but hesitating to dive in, especially in such a chaotic time, this is the workshop for you. Tickets are normally $15, but use the link in this episode description to get an exclusive discount. In unpredictable times, it's helpful to think long-term about your money, and this workshop will teach you how to do just that. Can't make it live? No worries. A replay will be sent to all ticket holders following the event, but you must reserve your spot ahead of time in order to get access. Join Amanda on June 13th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. I'll be there. Will you? And today we are going to talk about bachelorette parties because these things are out of control. So I'm just going to say up front that as someone who did not have a bridal party in her wedding and has, generally speaking, only been in a few bridal parties, all of which were extremely chill, and I'll talk about that in a bit, I actually feel that in some ways I've been a little bit exempt from the worst of bachelorette culture. And part of that is maybe just because, I kind of self-select into social groups where let's all spend $2,000 each going to Nashville for a long weekend where we have to wear coordinated outfits for every planned activity and start the day with Jell-O shots. I just don't have friends like that, honestly. And in some ways, it's maybe a privilege. I also didn't go to college, so I didn't have the chance to form a bunch of friends at college who, maybe that was the vibe back then. Certainly wasn't in any kind of sorority, and just in general have managed to avoid it. But even still, I have not been totally immune from the wedding industrial complex. And especially given the work that we do here at TFD, I have been made incredibly aware of just how out of control a lot of this has gotten. So let's just start by setting up just a few of the baseline realities that bachelor and bachelorette parties, but we'll especially focus on bachelorettes because I'm a girly, a lot of you are girlies. This is just kind of the seas that we're swimming in. So bachelor and bachelorette parties historically used to be one evening before a wedding when the bride or groom's friends would take them out for a last night of freedom, which, while weirdly traditionalist, certainly wasn't breaking the bank for most people. Now they've evolved into often multi-day affairs, often in popular tourist locations that can easily cost thousands of dollars for attendees. A survey from savings.com that polled 500 recent bachelor/bachelorette party attendees found that the average cost per attendant was about $1,500. Another study conducted by bachelor party planning app Batch found that these two multi-day functions cost over $10,000 total on average, up from just $7,700 2 years ago. A 2019 poll from Credit Karma found that nearly 1 in 4 attendees have gone into debt to attend a bachelor or bachelorette party. And overall, these massive shifts represent not just increasing cost and, for example, the expectation of taking time off of work, something that is definitely not available to everyone and also not necessarily what everyone would want to use their precious PTO on. It represents a more philosophical shift away from this couple is creating an event in which the expectation is for them to show a good time to their friends and family and to largely themselves or their families assume that cost, to the costs are being passed on to the attendees, which, while in and of itself just not usually how parties work, also becomes extremely unsustainable when you consider that most people are going to attend a fair amount of weddings in their lifetime. And if they are all at this level of expense, the math quickly, as they say, ain't mathin'. And when we think about why these trends are occurring, it's honestly, I think, most logical to point to the rise and now ubiquity of social media as a kind of digital arms race to constantly not only one-upping each other, but at minimum feeling obligated to participate in these events and themes and purchases, which even a couple years ago didn't even exist in your knowledge. We're not just throwing our own ceremonies, we are now bearing witness to everyone's ceremonies, even people we don't know in real life. And we also know that for the most part, what we put together is going to be broadcast out in a similar way. And we've talked many times on the channel about the insidious and subconscious effects that this social media pressure can have on us, in everything from our body image to our diet and lifestyle choices to the clothes that we wear. But when you combine this pressure with the already pre-existing and in many cases very predatory wedding industry, which has historically sold women a very specific idea that this is the most important day of their life and a day on which almost all expenses are to some extent permissible, you get a really toxic combination. And as we can see, given the topic of this video, it's not just about the weddings themselves. In fact, by the time many couples make it to wedding day, they're already enormously in debt or have put their friends in a state of debt, let alone the actual wedding, which for many people requires travel and lodging and transportation on the ground and many other things that they may not be able to afford, but don't feel in a socially acceptable place to be honest about. But getting back to the bachelorette parties, which again, for many years used to be a pretty humble affair in your town with people you knew who lived locally, just one evening, often the night before an actual wedding, we see how completely out of control the expectations have gotten. For example, many bachelorette trips, and again, it's becoming more and more the norm for them to be out-of-town destination trips to which everyone needs to be paying for travel and accommodations. We're often now seeing outfit requirements, where invitation to these events will now include a list of outfit requirements, from purchasing matching bride tribe t-shirts everyone will literally wear once, to asking attendees to bring a cowboy hat and boots to wear on a night out in Nashville. From one article in Racked, Priya, 28, recently attended her cousin's Miami bachelorette party, which had not one but 3 occasions requiring a dress code. Aside from the traditional t-shirt that says something cute about the bride brunch, 2 nights on the town meant the rest of the party had to dress to make the bride stand out. One night we all had to wear a black dress, and the bachelorette was going to be wearing a brightly colored dress, Priya says. Then the other night we had to wear a pink dress, preferably hot pink or neon, and she would be wearing a metallic dress. In her book Consumed, recent TFC guest Aja Barber talked about how unworn t-shirts are one of the most rampant clothing donation items to end up in landfills. And that's just talking about the clothing. We're not even talking about all of the other single-use, often plastic items that are absolutely flooding these parties and now, in many cases, multi-day affairs. And getting away from the waste of it all, there's also the incredible social pressure to consume an excessive amount of alcohol just to be participating in the festivities. Now, even bachelor and bachelorette parties of yore were to some extent centered on drinking as a norm. But now that they're multi-day affairs, the amount of alcohol being consumed on these days can honestly be cause for concern, especially when so many planned activities on these trips are alcohol-centric, like visits to wineries and breweries and rides on party buses and booze cruises. We conducted a quick poll on our Instagram page, and out of nearly 1,500 respondents, 64% said that they have felt pressured to drink more than they wanted to at bachelor or bachelorette parties. 2/3. And listen, I am someone that does drink alcohol, and even I have been pretty shocked and uncomfortable at the way alcohol is centered at a lot of these events, including at the weddings themselves. But again, when it comes to the wedding, usually you're talking about a single day. Unlike these trips in which morning, noon, and night, you are essentially held hostage to the planned activities, from the boozy brunches starting at 10 in the morning, all the way to shot-filled dancing at a nightclub that can easily go to 2 or 3 in the morning. And that's not even considering people who, for whatever personal reasons, don't themselves drink. I've never had a kid and don't plan to, but I know plenty of people who have, and more than one of them has talked about how terrible it was to go on a bachelorette trip while they were pregnant, because they essentially felt like a chaperone on a school field trip, just sitting there while everyone got wasted around them. And bachelorette parties have themselves even turned certain places into bachelorette-specific hotspots, for which the near ubiquity of these parties and the drunken hordes of revelers that they bring can have disastrous effects on local communities. From an article on Nashville turning into one big bachelorette party, quote, "The larger issue with the bachelorettes is one that few will articulate. What does this influx of young, moneyed women and the web of industries that have popped up to cater to them suggest about the town that Nashville is rapidly gentrifying into? And what might it signal about the future and the impact of international tourism throughout the US? Tourists always went to the honky-tonks on Broadway. They always went to the Opry. But this new type of tourism, centered on Instagram-friendly experiences and the mobility and capital that it requires, means touching on more areas of the city and accelerating the already rapid transformation of a sleepy, artsy southern town into a cluster of destinations. As that happens, attention to the past and to the things that made and continue to make Nashville feel unique and vibrant and desirable is swallowed by the desire to document the present. And again, as I mentioned, although many of these things are now ubiquitous enough that most people have at least seen them if they've not themselves had to participate in them, it's important to stress that very recently, almost none of this stuff existed. The idea of a specific destination being a must visit for bachelorette parties, and within that destination, multiple locations being places that you have to go and take Instagram-worthy pictures at to show to everyone that you went there, was not a concern. And while yes, in the short term, some of these things can bring money to local economies, as that article lays out, it's usually not the kind of tourism dollars that really benefits these cities long term. And again, in the shorter term, it puts a huge pressure on the finances of the people who are having to participate in them. I mentioned up front that I have been a participant in pretty cool bridal parties, honestly. For example, where we were just instructed as bridesmaids for the wedding to wear a color. Any shade of that color was fine. And if we didn't have something we felt good in that color, she would give us a stipend to buy an item that we felt good in. So literally not spending $1. We were catered to, we were given gifts and thank yous. But also like the evenings out were just that, an evening in our local city. The bride actually paid for most of the activities. Generally, in my experience, the few times I have been in bridal parties, it was always done with a focus on making sure that the people who are ultimately doing you quite a substantial favor by dedicating their time and money and energy to being part of your celebration are not being put under any undue financial strain and are not having to accrue all kinds of additional expenses for the privilege of already doing something to benefit you. Weddings can be amazing. They can be really fun. And my husband and I are both people who love to dance, and there are not a ton of social activities left where partner dancing even really happens, let alone is the main focus of the evening past a certain point. So we love a wedding. Sign us up for the most part. But it is worth noting that it's becoming more and more desirable in weddings to just be a guest, because at least then you are minimizing the amount of impact that it will have on your wallet, as opposed to actually being in any capacity part of the wedding, which is increasingly something that fewer and fewer people can really afford. And now it's time for our Society Questions of the Week. For those who don't know, every week on my Tuesday show, I answer 2 questions asked to me by members of our society at TFD, which comes with tons of other benefits besides just asking these questions. And you can join by hitting the join button right below this video, or by joining us at Patreon, which is also linked below the video. Our first question for today says, I know somebody who has a really great job that is low stress. They love their job and the pay is decent. Recently, they've been made aware of a job that they are interested in that is more stress but pays double what they make now. I know the phrase goes, you can't put a price on happiness, but can you? What would be your advice to a person with such a dilemma? It depends on their age and their goals financially, but in general, if they're on the younger adult side and the money is literally double what they're making, I would probably take that job and work it for a few years and save really aggressively. Like you could save 100% of the difference between those two jobs and still be living pretty well, it sounds like. Because being able to save up such a radical amount of money in a short amount of time, knowing that you're not going to stay there forever is a hugely valuable thing that can provide a lot of freedom and flexibility and therefore in many ways happiness down the road. So yeah, I think that's generally worth doing. My husband and I have always kind of approached our careers that way. You know, for example, right now with doing my book on top of TFD, like I'm working a lot more than I would like to. And it's certainly not something I plan on doing long term, but I'm setting myself up to have passive income from it and to reap all other kinds of benefits from having taken on this project. So, you know, it's a decision that's worth making in, you know, the medium term. Same for decisions that he's made. But I think, again, it's important to know that you're at a place where you can take it on mentally and emotionally, and also that it's not something that you would plan to do for too long of a time. The second question for today says, first off, congrats on your forthcoming novel. Thank you. A Perfect Vintage, out June 6, 2023. That is so exciting. I myself have self-published 2 novels via KDP. Well, I republished the first one after initially falling for one of those vanity presses. However, the books are just kind of sitting there. The few reviews that they do have are good, but I am not very good at marketing myself, and even paid marketing hasn't garnered me any attention. I'm trying to work on the 3rd novel. It's a trilogy, but I am struggling with writer's block, and since the first 2 have been out for several years, I feel like it's too late to market them. Any tips? It's never too late to market them, but it's so important to understand that marketing is by far the most important part of the process. And this is true whether you're working at a traditional publisher or you're self-publishing. Trust me, I know personally plenty of people who have had books with traditional publishers that totally flopped because the marketing just wasn't there on either side. So understanding marketing is not a perfect science. You can't just decide, okay, I'm going to put in a certain number of hours and that will net me a certain amount of reward. I mean, even myself, I have a very large platform. I have a marketing partner. I have a lot of resources to market in an effective way that are not available to everyone. But even me, I'm taking a gamble. I'm making an investment and taking a risk that it may not end up paying off the way I hoped it would. And I don't always know. I mean, there's that saying, you waste 50% of your marketing budget. You just don't know at the time which 50% is the one you're wasting. And I think that's really true no matter what you're marketing. But my advice to you would be, if you are not willing to dedicate a very serious amount of time and money and energy to really master the art of book marketing, that means a lot of research. You may need to take some classes. You will probably need to do an enormous amount of emailing and networking and group joining and all different kinds of things that are crucial to, finding your audience, to getting your book in front of them multiple times so that they are able to finally buy after a certain number of times of seeing it. If you're not willing to do that and really kind of make it as much of a job, if not more so than the writing itself, then I do think you need to treat writing, you don't have to give it up, but I think it's important to just regard it as a hobby and to not have the expectation that you're going to make money from it or that it's going to find a large audience. I can say personally that I am spending about 2 to 3 times as much just raw man hours and money on marketing as I did on actual book production. And I think that's probably really par for the course for a lot of people, again, whether you're traditionally published or not. So I would really ask yourself that question. Know that there's no right or wrong answer, but also be realistic with yourself that you could have written, the next great American novel and no one will read it because the real issue is in marketing. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and to come back every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday for new and awesome videos. Goodbye.